Sure. Well, I think once people taste these, it's just a matter of time.
Napa Valley Cabernet, as I said, is a little softer, more supple. We ferment the wine separate, different in a way. We leave the reserve wine on the skins for quite a long time, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. Whereas the Napa Valley's in and out off the fermenter in about 21 days, so we don't get a lot of extraction. We get our color, we get our flavor, we get our aroma, but not as much structure.
Okay.
And then in the cellar, we actually actively rack this wine a little more often to give it more air, to get some softening of the tannins to make the wine more supple.
Okay.
Definitely food wine.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Very, very nice. And in terms of a style, I mean, you mentioned in the Chardonnay you take a Burgundian approach and style to it. What's your inspiration for the cabs?
Well, at the same time I went to France in 1991 and spent time in Burgundy, I spent time in Bordeaux. And,
okay.
and quite honestly, after having worked in the industry for about 10 years at that time, I realized that in California, we made wine on schedule. We made wine almost by recipe. Whereas certainly in France and other wine-producing countries in Europe, they don't. They believe that wine is an expression of the agriculture of the area, expression of the land, and you basically cater to the property, and that's what I like to say I do with our winemaking as well. I can't make our Rutherford Cabernet taste like our Coombsville, and I can't make Carnero Chardonnay taste like Oakville. So you basically have to accept what it is you have planted and then learn to nurture it. The style of wines certainly are influenced by my time at Stag's Leap Wine Cellars. We were very famous for making one of the softest, roundest, richest Cabernets in Napa, and I spent 11 years of my life at that facility. But certainly in Bordeaux, again, it's a part of the European culture. Wine is part of the meal. It is not the main course, it is an accompaniment to it, and I have certainly taken that away with me to my consulting business and to my clients as well, and certainly with SALEXIS.
Great, great. I feel bad dumping it out. I mean, but we have to move on.
It's only wine.
Right? Okay, so the next wine, SALEXIS Cabernet Reserve. So why don't would you just explain to everyone what reserve means to you?
To me, it means the best of the best.
Okay.
And we talked earlier about integrity, and this is something where I will be stepping out and saying that we will only make reserve wines in good, if not great years.
Okay.
That is something that has been lost over time in the Napa Valley. I actually lost my virginity on that premise at one of my wineries, where all of a sudden, although we preached that we only made it in great years, it was basically forced down my throat to do it every year. It was a business decision rather than an artist decision. So in our case, we are taking the position that every year is not God-given, and therefore we won't make reserve wines every year.
Right.
But we'd like to think that this is the way wine should be made.
Yeah.
But certainly with the economy of the United States and what have you, higher priced wines aren't selling as often, and certainly in restaurants, which is something we also look toward, high priced wines just aren't moving at all.
Gotcha.
So, but if I could afford it to make wine like every day, this is the way I would make it.
Got it.
It's bells and whistles wine.
Okay.
It's a bigger, more massive wine. As I said, we leave it on the skins for 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks. So we're looking at 45, 50 days on the skins.
Okay.
And during that time, we get what we call a polymerization of the tannins. The harsher tannins come together and fall out literally, physically to the bottom of the tank. And what we're doing is we're tasting the wine out of the racking valve during the post-fermentation time and seeing the wine change. And over the period of the 4th week to the 5th week to the 6th week to the 7th week, we see the wine basically peak from a tannin standpoint and get softer and then mellow out. And at the point where we don't see the wine changing anymore is when what we call drain the tank and press it. Now in this case with the reserve, we don't use any pressed wine. We've been waiting for the wine tasting out of the tank to taste the way we'd like to do it. If you enter the 20% or 15% pressed wine into it, you've just screwed up what you've been waiting 49 or 50 days to achieve. So free run only. The wine is settled overnight, and it goes into 100% new barrels, into the best French barrels, in my opinion.
Okay.
From a cooperage called Taranceau.
Okay. And always new for the reserve?
Always new.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, how about for the regular cab?
It's about between 50% and 2/3.
Okay.
Depending on yields.
Okay.
Again, the reserve is really important to us in that it's all about integrity. It's all
Sure.
about the expression of the vintage. In all 100% new barrels each year.
Okay. And by the way, right, you talk about what makes a wine, and you mentioned balance, and of course I'll bring up finish. I mean, I took my last sip about 60 seconds ago, and I'm still tasting. It's still with me, which is a testament.
Very important to us.
Yeah.
You know, the quote unquote lingering finish is supposed to entice you to go for another sip. Or
Yes, I'll have another.
You know, and
Yes.
some wines fall right off. You know, they have no finish to them, and they're wines that aren't interesting, and they leave you going, "What was that I just tasted?" And that's not something we're interested in making.
Okay. I couldn't help but notice on your website, SALEXISwines.com, you know, you talk about it being a 20-year dream. And for me, you know, I became, you know, involved with this business as a result of just my passion for business and later wine. But I'm so intrigued and fascinated by people's dreams. And so, are you living your dream right now?
Very much so. I say this, I quit my last full-time job about 12 years ago.
Okay.
I make my living by making wine for other people. We're on the cusp of figuring out what it takes to make this our day job.
Okay.
With a little bit of blessing from the economy and God's will, we see this as when Sarah gets out of school, which will probably be about 5 years from now.
Okay.
We'd like to slowly whittle away at the consulting business and make this our own.
Sure.
And that's it.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Well, I wish you best of luck, and certainly we're huge fans of yours here, and certainly again we will spread the word. SALEXIS is going to be around for a long time.
We appreciate it.
So thanks, John.
All right, thank you.
I'm Michael Bray, John Gibson from Passion Vines TV. We'll see you next time.